All set? All right, okay. It is 12:02 p.m. on Tuesday, October 26th, 2021, and I'll call the meeting of the Manitowoc Public School District Board of Education to order. We will start with our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And then I'll ask our board secretary to take roll.
Alan Burnell,
Here.
Lisa Johnston,
Here.
Dave Nichols,
Here.
Meredith Sauer, here, Stacy Seldner,
Here.
Carrie Trask,
Here.
and Kathy Lewis. Here. Thank you.
Okay, and then I would entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from our October 12th public hearing and our regular board meeting.
I'll
make a motion.
And second that.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will carry. Then we'll move on to our committee. Reports, personnel committee is first. Terry, you are there.
There's usually a communications item on attending the meetings, not required to wear their masks when everyone else has the courtesy to wear theirs. As long as the mask policy is in place for students, staff, and guests inside all MPSD buildings, it should be enforced. Well, I Colin and Stacy think they are above the policy and refuse to wear masks. And I'd suggest we have some discussion about that as a board.
Okay, you want me to put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
I'd like to put it on the agenda for this meeting, but
Well, you could do that.
I would say that some action, some action might come up at a later meeting, but it just seems to me that
You could do that.
there's something fundamental in a democracy.
Terry, you could do that under district activity update. When we have the report of the superintendent, and then you can ask for, I'll ask if there are any, if you have any other questions for the superintendent. You can bring that up then.
Okay, cool.
And then move on to your personnel.
Okay, the personnel committee, there's a number of issues coming before the board. We had our meeting on October the 11th and decided as a committee that the request for full-time school nurse for the remainder of the school year, a full-time or 2 part-time secondary teachers from McKinley Academy, also for the remainder of the school year, and an addition of a paraprofessional at each of the buildings for the remainder of the school year, all paid for by ESSER dollars. The other in addition to that, there's a need and an opportunity for middle school core teachers, that is, teachers teaching English and social science, or math and science. Most of the teachers teaching in the middle schools are kind of dual licensed. Like math teachers are licensed to also teach science. That combination works out really well in that context. There are a number of teachers that are not dual certified, and that's being addressed. And that we also observed and discussed that there's a substitute teacher problem in that there's a high demand and a low supply, and you know, we may want to review the policy on that and address that problem. Since the short supply is in some ways imposing on teachers who are already working full-time and then some. And that we want to be fair and equitable, to use an inflammatory word, I guess, fair and equitable to everybody concerned here. So that's my report, and there'll be an action item on later on the agenda.
Okay, any questions for Terry on his report?
I actually have.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the last meeting, so I guess I have a lot of questions about the two-person houses, and I'm wondering when
The two what?
the two-person houses that we're talking about, like the dual licensure for our teachers. So when did we start looking at that, and why, and who brought it up? And whose idea was it? I don't know who to ask that of.
I don't know.
I'm assuming it's our curriculum people.
I don't know.
Well, let me just say this.
Where did that start coming from?
So when we moved from junior high to middle school.
Yeah.
When we added sixth grade teachers, we looked at, sixth grade teachers or K-8 licensures can teach multiple subjects. And, the reason why we're looking at making the changes is because our enrollment is changing, and when you have an even number of teachers, it works out perfectly. And we're forecasting that based on our enrollment, we won't have even number of teachers, and we'll be required to have teachers teach multiple subjects.
So you may have some of that, but not all of them. And I guess I would question that model, Mark, because when we have teachers who are going to school for, they may minor in something and they may be able to, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily what they're best suited for. So if I have a science teacher who's gone through all the programming for that and has become a science teacher, do I even want them teaching my kids math? When that one, they may have a license for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're comfortable with it, that they like it, or they're best suited for it. And so I don't know that we're really doing the best things for our kids by having someone teach both math and science. And the other thing is we keep talking about our teachers they have big loads now the way it is, and they have so much to do. So why would they re-burden them with teaching two completely different subjects? Because we're talking about matching math and science and ELA and social studies, very, very different subject matter. I don't see that as a very viable program. I think that we're having a lot of teachers who are very unhappy with that. And of course, a lot of them are more experienced teachers, but that only makes sense, right? If someone's been teaching a certain area for a long time, they're going to have to go back either for licensure or go back and like kind of reinvent their entire wheel for teaching. And I think that's asking a lot of the people who've been here for a long time. And why would I want someone who, say, has 20 years of experience in math teaching science?
Right.
When they're best suited for math or they're passionate about it. If they wanted to teach science, what's that?
None of those may be the case. I mean,
Well,
do we have anybody teaching just one subject for 20 years?
yes,
Maybe not.
many, many,
In the middle school?
yes.
No, okay.
Well,
Go there,
I think,
go there.
Kathy, I think that I understand your scenario, but what I would tell you is that the rationale has to do with our enrollment trends. And if there are, if in fact I need you to teach multiple classes because we only have 7 or 6 sections and not 8. And you don't have the licensure to do that, the options are not good. So either the district is going to have 16 in a class in 8th in the middle school, or we're going to ask people to teach multiple licenses to give us some flexibility and them some security. So at this point, we're not telling anybody you have to, but we're giving them the option to do so, and we're rolling out a plan to do so, because if in fact it comes up to a time where they don't have the licensure, we don't want that to be an aha moment to say, you're either going to have to
and why it's a positive thing. I mean, I never grew up, right? My parents never grew up having teachers teach math and science or social science. I'm not sure that that's the best thing. I think that we need to really evaluate this.
It's only 12 out of 43 that are, are single licensed teachers. 12 out of 43, and you said, well, this is making people unhappy, etc. I don't know, 43 aren't bitching. And we haven't had much, to my knowledge, had much blowback on offering this option. So I don't think. And the other thing is that, I mean, this is not graduate school. This is middle school. I mean, to teach math and science at the middle school level doesn't require another degree. It just requires a license.
But what I'm saying is, you have a teacher saying, and I'm just going to keep this example of science as an example. You have a teacher who has taught math for a long term, right? And now all of a sudden, where our teachers are already stressed. So you're going to come alongside them and say, oh, now you need to prep a whole new, entirely different subject area. They have limited prep the way it is. They've been doing this for a long time. And you say only 12, but those are 12 people who probably been doing it for a really long time.
Colin, go ahead. Colin.
If I could weigh in, Kathy, I would actually agree with you in this. I think you're onto something. You look to a lot of businesses sometimes, subject matter experts and things like that. Those are, say we have Bill Gates teaching us computer lit. Now we're gonna have him teach us math too. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna be very happy to get, that type of education from an expert in that field. That's what we're getting. I think asking an individual to expand upon their expertise more than what it is, are we getting the expertise that we want to have then? And then also on top of that, I think in addition to, it'd be work environments. A lot of times when you're adding requirements to those two individuals who may be resistant to requirements, I hear that we're not requiring it, so that's good. I'm glad that we're not. I just hope that we would not be down the road, because I think that we might be losing out on some individuals that may be offering some really valuable skills to our children.
Stacy.
I would also say too, one of the things we talked about, Kathy, was that it was optional, and that the teachers that didn't want to do that, we would try to place them in the high school that would be more of teaching one subject. But I totally agree with you. And I guess what I would ask is, what do you think would be at this point a solution to this issue? I mean, it was stated as optional. However, if they don't comply and there isn't a job for them, then they're gonna have to go somewhere else.
Right.
So I think it's fair that, if they decide to not do it, that they would still have a place here and then we would have to have. But I would think some of them, since it's being paid for, would kind of want to do it. But I'm concerned about the ones that don't have an interest, that have picked that a long time ago because that's what they want to do, or maybe they're planning on retiring in 5 to 7 years or whatever, and they just choose to not do that. I would hate to lose a seasoned teacher because of that.
Right. And part of the issue is that when teachers become certified, typically the people who are in middle school are like K through 8 or 1 through 8, not K through 12.
Right.
So we may not have the opportunity to bump them up to the high school because they would not have that certification. So I do think there are issues, and I'd like to discuss this further before we move ahead on it. I do think that as much as we're saying it's optional, Mark, I do think that people feel threatened by it and are afraid of losing their job because there are people who don't want to do this. So I'd like to have this come up
You think you should
again.
know that before we
Yeah, you
do a
should.
deep dive on this? I mean,
But you
we
should
could,
find
we
out.
could certainly survey the 12 and say, gee, is this a threat to you or is this an opportunity?
Yes, I think it
I
should.
mean,
be
I
out there.
was chair of a history program in colleges, and I'd have historians who would be, oh, but I'm just a European historian. I can't teach world history. And, or I'm just an American historian. I can't teach, any Western stuff. And it was sort of like, well, these are freshman, sophomore courses. You have a PhD. Come on, it's evolution here, buddy. I mean, you want to survive or you want to go down. And the ones that sort of wanted to go down, checked around to see what the job market was like. I know it's different for middle school teachers,
But I want to.
but the fact of the matter is they took work over non-work, and we had no adverse effects from that. And it seems to me this isn't a big ask.
It is a big ask.
Let me just interject here.
This is
We're not taking any action on this, right?
No.
This can move forward again and so we had, so bring it up at the next, maybe personnel committee meeting or whatever. Joyce.
Yeah, I
I
just
just want to say that, this topic, this discussion was already being talked about at the Wilson in Washington last school year, especially in spring. There were discussions already with staff, especially those that we knew would be impacted, that, this is the motto going forward and the why, it's spelled out in this document. And in spring, the discussion was with Corey and Lance that, we will work, we want to work with you. We know that some teachers are not going to have an issue with it. Others may have an issue with it. But we will work with you. The district will come up with a plan to help and support you. And there's been lots of discussions about that. There is a plan. There's numerous options for new staff. Again, I do believe there are some that feel okay about it, and absolutely there's going to be some that don't care for that or care for that direction. I get that. We also wanted to make sure that from the district level, when we put together this plan, and here are your 5 or 6 options, how we're going to financially support you. We're asking you, we need you to do this. And so that they aren't having to incur any costs out of their own pocket. And, we know that, we had some openings this past spring and summer at the high school. I mean, certainly an option for any of these 11 or 12 staff is to apply and go up to the high school. So that is definitely an option. And this is something that we're going to be asking these really a small number of staff to do, over the next 2 years as we move toward this model. And it's a mix of people that have been here more than 10 years, people that have been here less than 10 years. Once we went to the middle school model, so second year in the middle school model, third year, we definitely have been trying to hire staff that are K-8 or 1-8 certified, so that they've got that flexibility already. But, you know, I think, yeah, I no doubt can't people believe. I don't believe that all of these 12 are upset about it. I think there might be a handful, no doubt. But I do believe the district has put a very thorough plan in place and help and support people over the next 2 years. And there are options. They do have options.
I'd like to hear the discussion continue though beyond this, and I'd like to be part of it. And I also would like to start hearing from those teachers. So I think the idea of putting together a survey or going out to them and saying what you see as the benefits and not benefiting our students. Why is this a good idea and why isn't it? Like, what, you know, I understand we came up with it because of numbers, but you know, schools have fluctuated through the centuries, right? We have more and we have less at all these different times. And it seems to be a very unusual model. And I think the last several years, we've been going around several different ways of scheduling our middle schoolers. And a lot of them have not been very successful. So I'm very skeptical about this one. So, anyway, I just hope to see it continue and I'd like to be part of that. So.
Okay,
To add one other thing.
go ahead, Stacy.
I think that there should be no action from administration taken on this until the committee is reconvened. And I also think that, got my last thought. It'll come back to me.
Well, I'll just leave it at Carrie's personnel committee. You know, that's where discussions took place and, you know,
Sure, Stacy's on that committee.
keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it up again next meeting or whatever.
Oh,
Sure.
I know that going forward with this particular issue, that this should be an action item for the board. I think historically, when we've tried to phase things out, it's done very abruptly with not a vote by the board. So I think that should come up as a actionable item at the committee, as well as then being forwarded onto the board.
Okay, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to curriculum. Meredith.
So we met last Thursday. We had Lee Tennis in as a guest to talk about some of the upper level types of programs and courses that are available to our high school students. He brought in all sorts of enrollment numbers and credits earned from the Rising Phoenix program, youth apprenticeship, and college here and now, as well as dual credit. And we discussed at great length the IB program in comparison to a lot of the other offerings. IB at this time only has 2 students who are fully enrolled in the program. And in comparison to hundreds of students in the other programs, the high school has determined that the IB program has come full cycle, and it's time to put it to rest.
Wow.
So we had a great discussion on that. There was concern about this operational thing not being voted on by the board, so we're going to bring it back and have a formalized vote on that. We also were issued a comprehensive textbook list that Jason and Pam have put together with the teachers. So that was presented, and then we had some discussion about the learning walks for the rest of this year, just given the workload of the principals and the teachers during this continuation of a pandemic. So there's more to come on that, and we're going to continue to discuss that if that's an available avenue into seeing some of our schools. So, yeah.
I just want to add to that. I still believe that our learning blocks, they are part of what our board responsibilities have been in the past. And it should be a board decision whether or not we eliminate those.
And again, I toggle, some of these things are so operational and some of them are board decisions. And I think this is another one that rides that line, just like the previous discussion and the discussion before that.
But it is our responsibility. We're the ones
Yep.
running the schools, and that's where I
Yep.
see it. And I
And so we
know that
talked
our
about
teachers
compromise.
want us there.
We
Right.
talked about a compromise and there's more to come in the future when discussing that. We are going to have another meeting next week, just given some of the timeframes. So, we want to make sure that we get all of the discussion done that needs to happen before, of course, catalogs go out specifically for the high school and the middle school. So, we'll be meeting again next week to go through those.
Any other questions for Meredith? Colin?
So, as far as the textbooks go, I did see the list. It seemed rather short to me. Given the fact that the amount of books on there didn't seem to span quite length, quite the length that I would expect. But it was my understanding that not everybody participated. Is that correct in providing what textbooks they use?
I don't know, but I don't understand the question.
Did everybody participate in supplying the textbooks for that comprehensive list? All the teachers?
All teachers?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So in having a comprehensive list, it's not comprehensive then, I guess, if not every teacher is participating in the textbook list. We are required under law to be able to provide that to parents. And I do think that we should have a textbook list on hand to provide parents of what we use. So that we're not at the last minute looking into this. So that's all.
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate what we talked about at the curriculum committee with I believe Stacy had emailed June, July, or August, I don't remember the month, asking for a comprehensive textbook list. At that time, we were able to give an abbreviated version based on the textbooks that were adopted in the last 4 years. And committed to, after the dust settles from the start of the year, working with teacher leaders and building leaders to develop a more comprehensive list. So the list that was provided now is on the website, reflects the input from teacher leaders, that was SLLs, student learning liaisons, and principals, but does not reflect, as Colin said, a request that we would send out to every teacher.
Now, Jason, what's the kind of the process by which, people teaching class, choose a textbook? I mean, it seems to me that when they're purchased by the school system, I mean, they're property here and they're easily to identify and put on the list. But teachers don't have kind of the free and open option of picking their own textbooks, do they?
No. So, again, we talked about this at the committee. There's a process to adopt textbooks. And the most recent example would be our Bridges math resource at the elementary. It's more than just a textbook, but it's a good example. And it starts with a review or gathering volunteers from that grade band or content area. And for Bridges, for example, we brought in teacher representatives from every grade level, K through 5, and every building. And we looked at the math standards. So there was a common understanding of standards, and then brought in reps from, I think, 3 different vendors that we believe matched the resource to the standards. That team makes a recommendation. In this case, it was Bridges. All the while, we keep the curriculum committee members in the loop. That resource is then made available to the public and the Board of Education for, I believe, 4 weeks for review. At the same time, we did parent meetings here and parent meetings at every building. And finally, we make a recommendation to the curriculum committee to adopt that resource.
Okay. So not surveying all the teachers doesn't preclude the fact that this is a comprehensive list.
Yeah, I believe there's two things that we might be thinking about or talking about. I believe, again, as we spoke of at the curriculum committee, that comprehensive list, may there be pieces missing? Absolutely. But I think the second thing that we might be talking about is that many of our classrooms, especially at the elementary and middle level, have classroom libraries. And those are not textbooks. Those are books that support students reading and writing and engaging in literacy that supports our curriculum. That is, those books are not on that list.
Okay.
You know, it just seems to me like it would be a very simple solution, Jason, to like email all teachers, not your student leaders or not your SLLs, stating what the statute is, that we have to have this posted.
But we don't
And
have to
giving-
have it posted.
But
That's
we
the-
should, okay, say that we have it posted. We have to have it available, so
Available.
that's why
is
we're making it
different.
available. Let's say we're posting it, right? Here it is. If you've done, it's not a very long list, it'll be one page. If you have a textbook that is being used in your classroom that is outside of that list, please notify us and add it to the list. It's, we shouldn't be going on and on about this since it's been going on since June or July. This has been months. Like, it's not a really long list. To add several teachers or even several textbooks to a list like that has to be a fairly simple thing. I mean, that's how I see it. I think it could be dealt with in a very small, short period of time.
Meredith, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I don't think we can say in one breath that our teachers are overburdened and then ask them to catalog books. Those are, but I'm not done. The law states that it needs to be accessible. So if I, as an 8th grade parent, wanted to know what my child had access to, I could ask those parents. We are talking tens of thousands of books from the library that are accessible that may supplement, right?
Right.
So not only in a 1st grade classroom may we have hundreds of titles, but we're also talking a lot in school libraries. And that, to me, is something that we should not be expecting our classroom teachers to do.
Well, Meredith, I agree with you because actually that's what I stated last week at our meeting. I'm not talking about the libraries. I'm talking about their specific textbooks.
But they
So if-
supplement from the libraries.
But I'm just talking about the in-classroom textbooks that we have on that list and adding to it if there's something to be added. It could be a very simple email, and if someone has a textbook to add to it, be added. I'm not talking about all those libraries. 'Cause
I would
agree.
just be opposed to that because I think you're gonna add a lot of load to individual teachers.
Yeah, I don't see that, to email a textbook that they're using. in their
But
class.
it's not a textbook, it's hundreds of storybooks.
No, I'm not saying those. I'm saying you don't go there. That's why I had said at our last
Okay.
meeting. I don't agree with storybooks and those kinds of things.
Then we have the
I'm talking about
textbook.
specific texts.
Then we have those.
It's not a comprehensive
It's
list.
not a comprehensive list, though Jason said that himself. Not all teachers responded, so there may be a few textbooks that are still sitting out there that could be added to the list and we'll call it a comprehensive
I
list.
think we're maybe.
Hang on here. I'll get you, I'm calling first, Jason.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, I did not say that all teachers did not respond. That's not what I said. I said that we worked through our student learning liaisons and our building principals. We did not ask all teachers via email. We expected and asked our teacher leaders to meet with me to say, hey, what's that? So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I get that. That's part of why I'm saying, like, just sending a quick email up to all teachers for them to respond if there's an additional textbook that should be added to the list is super simple and it can be done within a minute. Like you, on your end and on the teacher's end. I'm not talking about classroom libraries. I'm just talking about specific, like, Hope New Mifflin textbooks, you know? So there's a very big distinction. And when you start going through the SLLs, you're adding a whole nother layer of responsibility to get out there to everybody. That is a burden. But if you're sending out an email to each teacher asking them to respond to that list, that could be very simple and very quick. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay, you're not talking every single storybook.
No, oh my gosh, no, absolutely not. That's why I was saying, that's why I had brought up the last time. That's not possible. I'm talking about like Oh, Midland type stuff, right?
And my
Yeah.
guess is that's been captured, but.
Okay, go ahead, Colin.
So the law that we're actually beholden to is 20 US Code 1232H, protection of people rights. Section A, inspection of instructional materials by parents or guardians. All instructional materials, including the teacher's manuals, bills, tapes, or other supplementary material, which will be used in connection with any survey, analysis, or evaluation as part of any applicable program, shall be available for inspection by the parents or guardians of the children. So I just wanted to make that clear as to what it was I was even talking about there.
So it doesn't give you any requirement of where it's to be posted.
It doesn't.
Okay, so if a parent is concerned, they can go into their child's classroom, inspect the classroom library and look at the materials.
If
That
that's
would
interpreted.
meet that would meet that requirement. Is that what I'm understanding here?
I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine that would, quite honestly, I'd say if that's what you want to have done, because, you're seeing an increase in concern of parents. I mean, I think everybody can really see that. And so if you know that there's a concern there, why not meet it? And if there's a concern in what's going on in the schools, here's what we're teaching, here's what we're told. We're told that we have to be able to provide. There you go. It's pretty easy. I mean, why make it harder than it needs to be?
So they can go into parent-teacher conferences, which is when, next week, next month?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
They have a concern, go to the conferences. Talk to the teacher, look at the library that's there. I don't know what else to say.
Sure.
I have just two other things. One, I've had a parent reach out wanting to know what was being taught in the health class for future, because if it wasn't in line with their thinking, they wanted to go to a different school. So that parent may not have that teacher yet. So that's one thing. So to go to just the 7th, 6th, 8th grade, just pick one and see what you're doing, I think it's unreasonable. The second thing is, when I made this request, I think it's very concerning that our district leaders cannot provide a textbook list, and that it took that many months to get one. And what does that say about our leadership, that we can't provide a textbook list? And it was almost shocking that what I'm hearing is that it's almost insane that we would even compile a list of books that we have agreed on and purchased as a board. So I don't think it's a huge requirement to ask that there is a list of textbooks that we purchased.
That's true. I don't
Just
think the
doesn't make any
insane part.
sense to me.
What's the, I mean, we sort of have that.
Right, and all
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
asking is to
since
ensure that it's a
since the school
comprehensive
system owns
list.
those,
That's it.
that property, it's like, it should be pretty easy, yes. And I don't think there's any kind of conspiracy behind that not existing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just-
I'm not,
maybe it's never
there's
been
no
asked for.
conspiracy.
No.
I'm just saying, I think it's good practice
Okay.
that we do this, and that every year we say that we've looked at this, as a procedure. I think it's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to add something, Mary?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that Jason and Pam have made it very clear in several meetings that they cannot control what was done before they came here. They have controlled what they have done since they've been here. And so many of these books go back to 2001, 2005. That was prior to our current directors or any records that have been kept. And so they have kept their records. However, their predecessors may not have kept the same kind of records on textbooks, which is what has caused the delay.
Okay,
Sorry, just.
I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from the curriculum committee meeting.
Yeah. I'll move.
We have a second?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, we're finally through our committees. And we'll go to the report of the superintendent. That will be
See here, personnel report. Joyce.
Thank you. So no addendums today, just the personnel report that would have been in board book on Friday. I'll pause and send anyone questions.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, a second to approve the report. Anybody want to make a motion in a second? Okay. I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Personnel report, and then our district activity report, that would be our superintendent.
Yeah, just a couple quick things here. We've got a couple surveys going out to our students and families in the upcoming week, our staff, our student surveys. In November, our students will have an opportunity to participate in grades 6 to 8 in the Youth at Risk Behavior Survey. That's a survey that districts do every other year, identifying behaviors that our students may or may not participate in. We'll get those results sometime after January, February. That test is typically done statewide, and then we get county information back from that. Lots of positive things going on in our schools. We had a one-act play and a music concert this past week or so at Lincoln High School. Our fall sports are concluding. Got a few folks that are still volleyball teams participating, cross countries and states on Saturday. And who else? We have volleyball, cross country. I think are 2 people coming up. So we heard also parent-teacher conferences. Our elementary are coming up in a couple of weeks. We had our secondary ones the previous week. So just getting feedback from our parents and communicating with our folks about what's going on. So, good things moving.
Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, then we'll move on to unfinished business. We have our second read of policy 5310. First read was approved at our last meeting. So we're in the discussion stage. Any discussion on that? Alan?
So I took a look at the memorandum that we received from Attorney Jeffrey Lacey regarding the Student Health Services Policy 5310. And there is one thing that I noted in there that kind of really makes me wonder. It says, going down to the first page, right above where it's right before it says protection of people's rights, where it states that federal code. It says, rather, it requires that a school district provide notice to parents / legal guardians if the district plans for such examinations of students. So I guess I would want to ask the question as to if or whether we are or are not planning on doing invasive procedures. We are not. So therefore, if we are not planning on doing invasive procedures, according to the recommendations put forth by Jeffrey Lacey, the attorney that we had suggested to move forward on this, or to advise us, he's saying that we do not have to have such policy according to if the district plans for such examinations for students. Am I wrong in asking that?
I guess I articulate Jeffrey Lacey is not our attorney. That's the information that was forwarded to the committee a while back that has responded to this. So I can't speak to that.
Why were we providing this attorney's memo then if this was not somebody that we're supposed to be looking for reference on?
Because multiple school districts had public people asking about this policy.
Right.
And so that attorney comes from WASB, the School Board Association's attorney, and so they recommended that we include this in our case.
Who did?
WASB said, hey, if you have any questions about this, here is an attorney, Wisconsin attorneys who represent some school districts, didn't happen to represent our school district's piece. So that's why that was included in the conversation.
Okay. So in that thing that WASB is recommended for us to look into, here, if you have people asking about this, use this.
Yeah.
And this person has stated you only need to have this policy if you're doing these things. So would it be fair to conclude that WASB is saying you only need this policy if we're having these procedures in our district.
Except it doesn't say that.
It says if the district plans for such examinations.
And I don't know, maybe that would occur at some point. And then if you do plan those, then this is the procedure to follow.
But then that would, that policy, because right now it's.
That's the way I read it now.
Sure, and I understand that. I guess I would be looking to see, we don't have it. You know, everybody, I'm not gonna speak, I can't speak for everybody, but it sounded like everybody felt that this is some pretty strong language in this policy that should we maybe have this, and that's why we referred back to have this reviewed. And so now we're being told we don't necessarily need to have this policy unless we're having these examinations. So I have this policy then. I'm confused.
Well, I don't know, is a COVID test invasive? I guess it is, isn't it? I mean, they stick the thing up your nose. I mean, I've had a couple of them.
Yeah, I don't think that falls under this because we don't require it, right? But
Yeah, I
we
guess
ask-
that's true, yeah.
I guess I would just, if I could just add. So the
I'll
board,
get this, Stacy.
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
The
go
board
ahead.
asked me, oh, yeah, sorry.
Never mind. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, the board asked me to ask our attorney to get his feedback on specifically, at least I was thinking, through the policy that was asked to be requested from Mequon Thiensville, and then compare that to our policy. So last week, when I met with our attorney, very specifically in regards to ask the question, should we, or what would happen if we consider this 5330 from a different school district compared to ours? Is ours the one that has been approved for the first read? Any concerns that you have? The feedback that he gave me was that the first thing that he, as an attorney, realizes is that the policy that was brought forward from Mequon Thiensville was adopted in 2015. And this policy that we're looking at is adopted later than that. There's likely federal law that has changed between that point and this point. He said, I would not recommend the district adopt a policy that is out of date. That was so from, if you want to hear from what an attorney is saying, this policy is 2015, you have an up-to-date policy. He also said that Neola, the company that he works for, is one who vets some of the policies, and Neola is going to continue to look at this policy. However, this policy meets all the state and federal obligations that school districts are required to, and would recommend that we adopt current policy. So that's from Bob Burns, the district's attorney. That's the feedback that I was asked, I think, to get from.
As long as you don't have, you know, Dr. Mengele as the superintendent, I guess. I mean, it's not threatening, but the language is pretty disturbing, I must admit.
And Mark,
Stacy,
did you
go
say that this attorney works for Neola?
This attorney works for Davis and Keelthal, and Davis and Keelthal is one of the, Davis is a large attorney firm, is one of the firms that vets policy from one of many that vets policy. He said that's one of their jobs, is they vet policy from Neola. So Neola will say, take a look at this policy, vet it for the legal standpoint, and then go back. They're not the only ones, I'm sure there are others, but that is, he did tell me that was one thing.
Colin,
Yeah, so I mean, I did look into Neola a little bit. I wanted to find out who the policy writer is that we are drafting our policies from. And when I looked into them, it stated that Neola typically has 4 different versions of a particular policy that they go with. Does this particular policy, in fact, have 4 different versions to draft from? Because I know that we addressed that last time, but I obviously, in further discussions, you've had further discussions with Neola. Did they allude to any other policies that we can draft from?
No, he said they would be continuing to look into this policy, but there wasn't any updates, addendums, changes to the policy.
Okay. And then I guess I would still have to reiterate, we don't have the examinations. Why put it in policy? Because it just seems silly to, I mean, we don't have policies on use of CAD scans in our policy book, or anything of that nature. It just seems, yeah, maybe we do CAD scans down the road, but, then you would put a policy for that. I guess have policies for things you actually do seems to be the logical route.
You want to do more.
I would make a, I'll let Kathy say something before I.
Well, I guess, you know, if there are a lot of people who are concerned about it, I mean, Carrie is one of them too, about some of the language. You know, is it possible to possibly put on the bottom of it, like a notation saying that we currently don't have any of these invasive procedures, but we're required by law to have this policy, you know, something blah, blah, blah. So that it takes some of the alarm out of it for our parents, and maybe it could even be something to the fact that, you know, it will be addressed at a later date, or if this policy changes, you'll be notified, or, you know what I mean? Something to that effect, so that people aren't as alarmed thinking, I mean, if I was a parent coming into the district, right, and read it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they do this stuff, right? So maybe there needs to be notation that it's not being currently done, and if it is, I don't know where if it is, part even goes from there, but something about, like, this needs to be addressed by law, but we don't currently do any invasive procedures within our school district.
Colin,
All right, so I'll make a motion. And the reason that I'm gonna make this motion is because we do not have these examinations, we are told. So I do feel that this is an unnecessary policy to have. So I'd like to make a motion that we, eliminate this from the policy though.
I'd second that on the condition that by eliminating this policy, would we somehow be in violation of what the policy manual has
well,
to cover?
before we go, just to speak to your motion, what you're asking to do is to deny the motion. That's not an amendment. So,
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, sure.
yeah,
Because that's actually what we're doing is,
right. So if we just vote, if a majority vote no, then it's
problem
denied.
solved.
That's what, yeah, an amendment would just change some of the language or the wording.
Is the current, I guess for a point of clarification, Dave, is the point that the second read, because currently it is a policy that we currently have, correct?
We
So for a
already
point
have
of,
it, yeah. We deny the second read, and then we could make a motion then to eliminate the policy.
Sure,
Right, yeah.
okay.
That would be the proper way to do it. Go ahead.
So if you recall in the conversations that we had and original piece, that there were some of those things that were happening in our schools based on our nurses talking about some of our high need students. So when we talk about examinations and potential shots, and that those were things that were potentially occurring in our district. And those parents were part of that information. So like, this isn't something that happens typically, but there are cases. We have medically fragile children who may need these medical procedures done during their day, and their parents are well aware of that.
And I think the issue is that it's alarming people who aren't notified of that, like those people who need it, right? They're notified, they understand the parameters of the policy and what's being done and what's not being done. But it's other people who are reading the policy who maybe don't have their children in those situations who are alarmed by it.
I understand,
Which is the majority.
but, well, the board can decide, I understand, but the policy says we don't do it unless we notify you.
Right.
And so we do it, but we notify people we do it. It's not like a blanket statement. So I just want to make sure you understand, like, although as threatening as some of these languages are, we have some medically fragile students, or maybe I'll just say some students, maybe they're not even medically fragile, who these procedures need to happen during their time at school, and their parents are engaged. So for us to eliminate that, I don't think would be good for the district at this time.
I understand that, but why can't we put something to that effect as a notation below so that people don't have
And
that?
maybe we can. I'm not saying we can. I just wanted to clarify that some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe the language at least needs to be softened, or the alarming part of it needs to be taken out of the policy or added to it so that the alarm isn't ringing bells.
I guess the concern is if you can't,
When you
It
speak
says it
alarming,
right on the page.
Kathy, we have policies on weapons, search and seizure. Now, that's pretty alarming.
Right.
I'd say that's more alarming than suggesting something we don't do, but if we had to, this is how we would do it.
Yeah.
Colin, go ahead.
So based off of what I just heard from Superintendent Holtzman, now we do have, I believe you said we do have these in our school. We do or we do not?
We have incidents of which we may or we have already used, and some may have done this for students who have medical needs, yes.
We do in basic procedures.
Well, may I jump in?
Yes.
Go
I
ahead, Joe.
think one of the earliest times we discussed this, there was a little bit of a difference between, for example, providing emergency medication as outlined in a student's health plan.
Mhm.
Is different than an examination and then sometimes I think there's a little confusion when we talk about this policy around that, because Mark is correct that we absolutely have students, for example, who have a feeding tube, which is inserted. We absolutely have diabetic students who might have an injection. We absolutely have students who have other medications administered in ways that would fit this this language. And so I think the difference is thinking about whether or not that's an examination, or what is the other word here, that screening versus the concept that that is a procedure will be taken care of because it's outlined in someone's health plan. For me here, the beginning part of the proposed plan for 2019 says some things like, hey, we're gonna ask student, hey, that's how it starts. Hey, it says, the board will require students to submit to periodic health examinations for the following reasons. And there are 3 reasons listed there. And it says that they would be included but not limited to some physical examinations, dental, vision, hearing screenings, those kind of things. I think the rest of the policy, from the way I read it, part of this great reason that we have all these different people together, so we want to say, just because I think of it this way doesn't mean you do, but they're saying what we're not going to do. We're not going to do these other things that involve insertion, incision, injection. We're not going to do those without informing parents. That's how I read this policy. They're saying, because if we don't have the policy, I would be worried that we're going to not help students in the way that we have now. I mean, the first dental clinic was at Jefferson while I was there as a principal. I'm passionate about the whole kind of concept. So it makes me worried that we would back away from serving our children in our community. And so the way I read the policy is, these are things that we're going to do, and these are things that we're not going to do without notice to a parent. And I think that in some cases, people are reading that a little differently, and I respect that. That's why we're here to have this good discussion. But yes, we do have students that we absolutely need to serve them because of their health needs, or some kind of need that insertion, injection, incision would make sense for them. And goodness sakes, we want it to. Medical providers have directed us to do those things: seizure medications, diabetic medications, and so forth. So I hope that clarifies a little bit of what I think. It kind of comes down to how you're defining that examination, screening versus the service we're providing to students, or the, providing that medication, administering medication in whatever route the doctor deems necessary.
Go ahead, Stacy.
I would like to make an amendment to the policy in the second to last paragraph, to delete the 3 words invasive physical exam or screening. And I'd also like to then get rid of the last paragraph, but I think we need to keep the policy. I just think we need to change the language. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the policy without that.
Amend that, okay. Second?
I'll
We gotta have a second.
I'll second for sake of discussion.
Okay, now we got discussion.
Stacy, would you also be open to adding number 3, not necessary to protect the immediate health and safety of a specific student or other students, to this. I do not understand why other students would be necessary for the examination of, so would you be open to adding that line item 3 to your amendment?
Before I answer that, one of the things that, we should consider are that there are other health policies. So I think the other thing that, we're debating about here is what are we doing with students now? And, you know, Joanne is right in the sense that the students that we're serving now, we have a policy about students with chronic health conditions. We have a policy about emergency nursing services. You know, we have student accidents, medical authority in emergency cases. So we have all that in different policies. So it doesn't need to be, so we're not in violation if it's not in there as an invasive screening or evaluation. We're not doing anything to those current students because we already have policies for diabetes shots and different things like that. So again, I think that it's important to keep a policy of actually what we're going to be doing. And if it comes up in the future that we need to start doing invasive procedures, that we would start doing that. But so I guess that's what I'm saying, you know, is we already cover some of that.
Right. That's why I don't see it being necessary to be included into the policy. If we're gonna have a policy if we're gonna have a policy for things that we apparently do now, I guess I'm going all over the place here, but if we have these things going on, you know, the or other students is the biggest one for me. I guess that just, you look at vaccines and COVID vaccines and things like that, hot topic issue. There's enough people that are very concerned about that.
Then we're going against what our attorney advised us to do.
Oh, hang on here. We got an amendment. Let's speak to the.
So that's why I would like to remove, you know, I'm friendly to the amendment, but I'd like to see that added to your amendment of removing one.
Well, if this passes, then you can add an amendment to where we're at, because we go back to the original motion. And
Sure.
We've already got the amendment on the floor in a second. That's what we're discussing. So that's where we gotta be. I'll just say one thing. I'm not gonna vote in favor of an amendment. And I'll look at what the attorney writes at the very end of that letter that we got. Policy language is consistent with and mandated by federal law. And that's good enough for me. We're protected. Our district is protected if we take
maximize our potential to be aided more in the future. But just in the revenue limit itself, we didn't receive any for pupil increases, and as part of the biennial budget for the next year, there are no increases for pupils slated. So that is just very concerning for us when we look at just every district looks to give their staff increases to meet the standard of living increases, we'll be able, to consider those yet, but that will mean that we'll have to go into fund balance. So, overall with the summary of the budget, I outlined that in here. So the overall budget, total revenues and expenditures are in the report. So the total revenues for all funds are $88,378,044, and total expenditures $89,499,369. And then our levy that we're looking to approve is at $21,140,700. So that's just what we're looking at. The fund balance, we are using fund balance when we look at the full scope of our funds, and that is because of two things. Fund 50, food service is looking to bring in more revenues and expenditures because of the USDA reimbursement rate is higher. So that will continue at least through this year for sure. We are paying advance on our debts, so we'll be able to do that by the end of this week to save as much interest as we can. So that is we're really the largest amount that we're using in fund balance comes from. So that money is already in an account that's set aside that can only be used for debt service and nothing else. So we're just using the tools we have at hand as best we can to put us in the best financial position possible. So happy to take any further questions, or we'll go into any more detail if you'd like that.
Any questions for Angela? Colin?
Just like, I am concerned about what next year will bring us. So I would just like to add to that, knowing that we, very well could have that, budget shortfall in the coming years. Just that I hope that, we are starting to work on plans already to address that.
Correct. And we do have, it's just something we're going to have to start talking about early, and we know we have the benefit of not having a biennial budget, waiting for that news, which we waited all the way until July. We already know what we're looking at now, so we can look at that and know what we have at hand. And just a little side note, just to add in, I did forget to mention just that our mill rate is going to be that $7.42. Now, that's a and just to keep in mind as we move forward.
Anything else? We do need to approve the adjustments to the budget.
Okay.
So I'll need a motion in a second.
I move that we approve the 2021-22 Manitowoc Public School District budget adjustments as presented in accordance with section 65.90 of the Wisconsin statutes, which includes expenditures in the general fund of $545,238. Total expenditures of all funds of $89,499,369, and total revenues of $88,378,044, with a tax levy of $21,140,700.
Oh, thank you. And a second, we need to know?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Oh, we need a roll call vote, that's right.
Oh.
Lori?
Colin Brunel.
Aye.
Lisa Johnston.
Yes.
Dave Nichols.
Yes.
Meredith Sauer.
Yes.
Stacy Seldner.
Aye.
Carrie Trask.
Aye.
Kathy Willis.
Okay, that's why we have it in capital letters in red, right? Okay. And I guess to set the tax levy?
Yes, and then also included in a, just as I mentioned a little bit already, so our levy is looking to be, or the total levied amount at $21,140,700. That'll bring our mill rate per thousand to $7.42. So, undoubtedly the lowest in 37 years at least, and probably 4 years on top of that. So it's really a celebration for taxpayers, if they can just know that. So our value went up, but, just, or the levy went up, but the value also increased, so that still brings up the mill rate.
Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the tax levy.
Motion.
I'll second.
And then a roll call vote. Got it.
Colin Brunel,
Aye.
Lisa Johnston,
Yes.
Dave Nichols.
Yes.
Meredith Sauer,
Yes.
Stacy Selner,
Aye.
Carrie Trask,
Aye.
Kathy Lewis.
Aye.
Okay, and then finally, under new business, emergency nursing services plan.
Yeah.
Who wants to tell us about
I mean,
that?
that's-
Go
Yeah, I'd
on.
be happy to. I hope you had a chance to review our emergency nursing services plan.
Mhm.
I want to mention that we feel very lucky that Dr. Green from our community is open to being our medical supervisor. He does it as something that he volunteers to do for us. So thank you, Dr. Green. I also am sure that you noticed on our plan that we have a handful of very hardworking nurses who worked on this plan, and Dr. Green also has reviewed the plan. I bet that when you reviewed it, you noticed that there was a section about some administrative portions and some things about topics such as medical emergencies and activation of emergency services, lots of information about medication administration and the procedures surrounding that, as well as some information about EpiPens, what to do if there would be a medication error, how we take care of things on field trips, and also disposal of medication. I certainly would welcome any questions someone might have. This is something that we would be needing to make a motion in.
This is all new.
It is not.
Oh.
Each year we do the emergency nursing services plan. And it is required that we update it yearly.
Just an editorial change. UW Manitowoc no longer exists. It's UW Green Bay, Manitowoc.
Yeah, thank you. I'll find that on there. Let me see where you know which page that was?
Yeah, right. It's under administration for state.
You got it.
Second
Thank you.
page, yeah.
We'll make that change.
And Carrie, I think we have a policy that allows for those types of changes. Called technical
I
changes.
just said it was in there.
Yeah, I know, I get you, but we don't have to do
We
it
don't
as
have
a
to.
policy
debate it.
thing. Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
I have a great deal of respect for Dr. Green. I think he's a great doctor, very intelligent. My kids go to him. And he's very, very, I like the fact that knowing that we went also included outside of our experts to get kind of other feedback in it from the community, the community as well. One thing that I was wondering, going back to that 5310, could some of those things be added to this nursing plan to bridge that gap that maybe some of the concerns were felt?
There isn't a limit to what we write in the emergency
It
nursing
doesn't.
services plan, so that would be up to the board in their discussion. There are some things that must be included,
Yeah.
but I don't know of any regulations that say what we cannot include in addition to that.
It's just an opening.
Oh, Stacy.
So this is another one of those things where I do believe should go to committee first. And so I would ask that this go to the committee so the committee can look at what specific changes were made and have those recommended to the board prior to us voting on those.
Which committee would do that?
I think it's a weird one because Joanne, I think it's curriculum.
Yeah, that I usually kind of just float from committee to committee depending upon what one most closely aligns with what we're doing, and sometimes none of them closely align. So something like emergency nurses and services is financial and not.
It seems
personnel.
personality to me,
Yeah.
but
It could. Fit
I
there.
don't know which committee it falls on, but whichever one it does, I think that's.
Yeah, that would
the
be
process.
and certainly a suggestion that we can take under consideration as we have not done that before, that doesn't mean we can't start.
I don't know, I didn't see anything in here that I would object to, so I'm fine with it, so.
I'd like to, I understand what Stacy's saying though, so like maybe if we could just approve it this time because it's here before us now and say that in the future, these should be going through committee first. Otherwise, again, I'm using the word redundant, but I feel like otherwise we're just going back over it again unless somebody has an objection about something in the break.
I don't object to it going to committee, I mean, in the future.
Right.
I looked through it, I'm comfortable with it, because of course, well, I've seen this every year, so I don't see any significant changes that have ever been made to it in my time here, so. But I get what you're saying, maybe next year we could find the appropriate committee and just send it to the committee first and then have that approved and then bring it forward to the board.
Well, I mean, we currently have a plan, right? We have the plan already in play and, we have months left of the, left of this year, the 2021. I guess, and I do, hear what, Stacy's saying. I don't see why we couldn't just go down that route. Put it into the committee and we have the plan. All we're doing is continuing on with the plan. Why couldn't we do that?
It was October of 2020 that I have dated the last plan, so I brought it to you again in October. But again, that doesn't mean we keep our current plans like.
When does the current one expire?
Well, I didn't look at the exact date that we discussed it at the board meeting, but it's dated 10/2020. So it's possible that it was that first November meeting or would have been October. I would have to have us go back and look at when it was on, which exact date it was on the agenda.
But either way, we're into November, then we're beyond that date. If we took it to committee and came back. I don't see anything I object to in this, and I just feel like it's kind of redundant at this point. I totally agree about bringing it forward in committees. But, gosh, you guys, we have so many other things we'd like to address that can we just move on from some of these more simple things and start talking behavior plans and, other things like that will take time than taking up our time with things like this. How I see it.
Sure. And I guess going to that, I have things that I have concerns about. I know that there are things that you have concerns about. And, obviously if there's somebody that is on the board that has a concern about something and would like to see that brought before a committee, I don't see that is asking too much, especially seeing as how we have something that is in, it is already being covered. So we're protected, it's not like we're without a plan. If they just wanted to maybe take a deep dive and discuss and have those discussions, that'd be an opportunity for that person to maybe bring some things up. I guess it's just, it's continually said, we need to work together. So I guess this would be one of those things where we work together, and if somebody has a concern, then we just put it to the committee so that it can be worked.
Right. But my concern is that we may be expiring because if it has to go through committee and then come back to us for a board, we'd be into November.
Does it have an expiration?
Well, that's
Well,
approved in.
It's required that we do it annually. That's the only language I'm aware of. So I don't know that it has a specific.
That's just what
it'll expire on.
I can tell you if it comes to curriculum, we wouldn't be addressing it until late November, which would put it back here in early December.
So my question is there something in here that we object to?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I don't see any red flags to slow this process down.
Is
I mean,
there
there is
something
a
that
kind of a
committee's going
tendency
to
in this
find
board.
right now that we're going to have to modify in this nursing plan? And we're not nurses.
I would say that the problem is that no one knows here what was changed.
Did you ask the director?
Those of you that maybe have been here for years and have seen this document and obviously have it in a special file that you refer to every year, it's good practice when these things are changed that we look at them and see the changes, rather than just, again, rubber stamp everything that comes through from administration. It is our job to look at policies and procedures. And all I'm asking is that our team leaders bring it to committee. Let's look at it. Let's look at the changes so that we can say that as a committee, we did take a deep dive on this, whether it's 2 sentences, and that we brought it to the full board and that we're in agreement or not in agreement about it. I don't feel like I have enough information to be able to vote on this when I've never seen this document ever before in my life. I don't think it's good practice, and that's all I'm saying. It has nothing to do with nobody did a good job and they're trying to sneak things in. It's about doing due diligence, and that's all I'm asking.
Can we approve this and then move forward with a reevaluation within the curriculum committee, just so we're covered for now? And then maybe, the next, like into the beginning of December or whatever it is, look at it again just to make sure. And then that way we can be provided with, say, the last year's material versus this year's. Would that be possible?
I've said this many times and you've all heard it.
It's fluid.
Anything we approve can be modified or changed at any time in the future. Nothing is permanent. All right? So let's get past that at least.
How do you do this? Do you make a motion for that, or do
Well,
we just?
we have this item on the floor, okay?
Okay.
And because it's on the floor, we can make a motion in a second to approve or, well, we have to have a second to approve it. And then vote on it. And then if it's approved, then you can bring up a motion on how you want to proceed in the future. Yes,
Okay.
I'll allow that. Fine. We don't have a motion yet though.
I'll make a motion that we approve. it.
Okay, second? Okay, now discussion. Go ahead, Colin.
I was just gonna make a motion that we move to committee, but, so obviously, I will not be voting in favor. I do agree with, Stacy. We feel that we need to do our due diligence to things, whether we would agree with them or not. I personally don't see any issue with these. However, I do feel that if, there is, especially with, the comparison aspect, I don't know what was changed. Maybe some things could be added, but, that being said, I think that that's why I would be sitting and, moving this to committee. So.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just have to say again, like many other things, I am not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor, nor am I a nurse, nor am I a director who knows all of these things. So I'm going to just trust and vote forward that due diligence has been done.
Yeah, we can't micromanage every single thing. We just can't. It's above our expertise.
Sure.
So if you have a question, and if that is your doctor, children's doctor, make a phone call.
But that's what I mean. It kind of allows, in hearing that, in talking about that, it kind of allows that dialogue to be had. Say, I have this coming up. I can give that child's doctor, my kid's doctor, hey, Dr. Green, what were your thoughts on some of this stuff here? Because, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the guy. He's a great doctor. He's a very intelligent man. And I know our nurses are probably very well qualified as well. But that being said, then you can have that discussion a little bit easier.
But we can't keep micromanaging this as a board. There's so many other important issues to get to.
So Joanne, what changes were made besides the one you have to make with UW Manitowoc?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't have a copy that I could lay left and right and speak
I
exactly.
mean, we have this discussion here that there's these changes we're all worried about, but we don't know what they are. What are they?
If there was nothing changed in the content that, I would expect to have any raise any flags. I was just looking at the last one and this one and trying to see if I could do what you're asking in the moment. And without looking at past versions of the Google Doc, I wouldn't be able to do that sitting here right now. But things like the times that school starts and ends, when that changes, or if there's a location change to something, if we move one of our, I just drew a blank on something. It's the box that's out here. It helps you with the heart situation. One of the AED machine or something, something like that. We would make those changes, but no content changes. Although, again, even if the board would choose to move forward with a motion, if there is a committee that wants me to come and do that even after the motion, I'm always happy to come to committee and I could be better prepared to lay those two things down and share it with you.
Is there a reason that we have this as a continually revisited item? I mean, if there isn't that many changes that are being had to this, kind of like how we have other policies, is there a reason that we have this continually revisited? There's very few.
Yes, it is a requirement that we have a yearly review of the emergency nursing services plan.
Okay.
And I believe the standard is standard G. And I know that we have a requirement to bring it to the board each year. Being something that is as important as it is, you know, things like medications and emergency procedures and making sure that we have all the things in place to ensure the safety of our students. It is something that we need to look at yearly.
Okay, all in favor of the emergency nursing services plan as presented, say aye. Opposed?
No,
No,
Okay, it's passed. Did you wanna, you can, since we have this topic, you can make a motion if you want to do whatever you want. But as long as it
I
pertains
do
to
think
an
it's somewhat
emergency.
redundant again to bring it up, but I do think it's also important to start that ball rolling. So I will make a motion to revisit this within the curriculum committee at a future date.
That's general enough for me. There's a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, we got it. Future meeting dates, curriculum, we got something coming up, you said?
Thursday,
November 4th.
November 4th at,
That's passed, correct?
Yes,
okay, I just didn't hear.
nobody said no.
Okay.
Nobody says.
Got it. Thank you.
Even if they didn't like it, they didn't say no.
I just wanted to clarify.
Sorry. Okay, curriculum,
Thursday, November 4th at,
building and grounds,
Not at this time, thank you.
okay, I like that. Angela, you probably,
We're gonna wait till December. I think
Right.
if we're all ready to take a break. December 1st, I believe is the next one that we have.
and then personnel, Carrie?
Well, I'll talk to Joyce. I mean, I don't want
So you're not
to,
even planned right now.
you know, I don't have it on, I don't have anything to.
Our ad hoc, COVID protocols will meet on Monday,
Monday 1 p.m.
7
Or
o'clock. 7 o'clock, okay. I have 3 parents, citizen members that have been added to it. So they should be in attendance. They told me they would be, so we'll see how that goes.
If, do we have,
I'll give you the names on Monday because I want to make sure that they can be there on Monday. Like, rather than making their name public and then they
can't make it anymore? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then our next meeting would be, November 9th, okay. Okay, now, closed session. The Board of Education will vote to convene in closed session for the purpose of considering the following matter. Contract terms of the Manitowoc Public School District Superintendent. This meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C of the Wisconsin statutes. I need a motion in a second. Make a motion to go into closed session.
Yeah, we'll go into
Anybody
closed
second?
session.
I'll second.
We need a roll call vote. I caught that one.
Yeah.
Colin Brunel,
Aye.
Lisa Johnston,
Yes.
Dave Nichols.
Yes.
Meredith Sauer. Yes. Stacy Selner. Aye. Carrie Trask. Kathy Willis.
Aye.
Thank you.
We are in closed session.
Like a 3-minute recess.
Yeah. I would have. Went out of school. Because I think that was,